Grade 12 today we start with the French Revolution. To introduce the settings, during that time, the merchants, they earned a good living. But after paying a lot of taxes, they hardly had any money left. And these were the merchants who were the middle class. With the peasants, who were the lowest class, the case was worse. They didn't have enough money. The farming was not enough. The profits were not enough, and they didn't have enough to live. On the other hand, the nobles, who were the high class or the elites, they lived a very wealthy life, a very luxurious life, and they practically paid no taxes. The French government did not impose taxes on the elites or on the first level or the highest level. A lot of people in France were desperate for changes. They heard about the Enlightenment. They lived actually in the Enlightenment. Yes, Hania.
مثلا I'm sorry بس ممكن حضرتك تدخل لي سمر.
Okay. I have no one in the waiting room. Oh, okay, I have them now. I think they're all here. So going back to the lesson, most of the people in France were desperate for a change. The reasons behind these changes is that they already experienced the Enlightenment and they've heard about the American Revolution, which was the result of the Enlightenment. So they wanted to start with a revolution, but they didn't know how. They started gathering, and some representatives demanded violent actions and revolutions, but the rest of the people didn't. Now, the positive parts about that time in Europe is that the Enlightenment made the European countries a lot more developed than they used to be. The population increased because the Enlightenment brought prosperity and success for the European countries, and therefore the trade also increased. But the negative points during that time in Europe in the 1700s were that during that time, the soil was bad for unknown reasons, so the harvest was poor. The governments, all European governments, imposed very high taxes because of the previous wars that they kind of went in with each other. And finally, even though there were a lot of new products because of the trades, but they always had high prices. So these were the negative and positive points of the Enlightenment and during that time at the European countries in the 1700s. Now, during the old regime or the old French system, under this regime, the people of France were divided into 3 estates or 3 classes. They were divided into the first estate, the second estate, and the third estate. The first and second estates were known as the privileged estates. The main privilege that they got is that they paid no taxes. The first estate included the Roman Catholic Church only, and it made up 1% of the French population. The second estate, on the other hand, was made up of the rich nobles, and it encountered for only 2% of the French population. So to summarize it up, the first and second estates were known as the privileged estates. Why were they called privileged estates? Because they had a very big privilege, which is they did not pay taxes. Who are these estates? The first estate, including the Roman Catholic Church, and the second estate, including the nobles. The Roman Catholic Church made up 1% of the people, and the nobles made up 2% of the people. The third estate was the remaining 97% of people, and it included the rest of the people. Now, the first estate, which is the Roman Catholic Church, they did not pay taxes, but there were other privileges, hidden privileges that they had. Number one, they owned 10% of the land in France. Number two, they provided free education for the poor. And number three, they took 2% of the people's income, of the third estate's income, and said that this needs to go to the government. As for the second estate, it contained the rich nobles, and it accounted for the 2% of the population. These people, they owned 20% of the land. And the privilege was that they paid taxes, they could start whatever business they want, they could own whatever business they want. They did not pay any percentage of their incomes to the government. Now, for the third estate, we said that it was made up of 97% of the people, which was at that time 25 million. The third estate itself was divided into 3 groups. So the lowest level, or the third estate, was divided into 3 subgroups. The first group was known as the bourgeoisie. The second group was known as the workers. And the third group was known as the peasants. Do you have any questions so far concerning the division of the 3 estates of the French people?
No.
Okay, please take exactly 6 minutes. I need you to draw either a tree diagram or a web diagram or a hierarchy, which is you need to divide the French population or the French classes under the old regime into 3 estates. Write down what each estate included and the percentage, and divide the third estate into 3 branches so that I can continue explaining. You have the 2 paragraphs in front of you. You can read them and use them. Is it all clear?